Hi guys, I wanted to do a quick video to show you the basics of form specifications in 9G and how you would go about applying custom form specifications to your dome to get a different sort of look and feel. A form specification, it's very much like the idea of a skin, or some people would call it a style or a theme. The reason I've called it a form spec is because it's quite a bit more detailed than what a skin would normally entail. In terms of a form specification in 9G, holds all the instructions in terms of rendering this form, everything to do with the form as well as the interaction. So within a form spec, you define actions. Those actions actually um, allow you to set how you want to manage your orders. If you want to, if you want to right click to place a limit, or if you want to left click to cancel something, and that applies. There's a fairly substantial action library. Things like auto centering, how you want to do that. If I want to middle click a particular column, all of that is maintained inside of the spec. And yeah, so the specs themselves are then applied to the dome, and through doing that, the dome will then function based on the definition, that's set inside of the spec. So to get started, what we're going to do is up here, I've got the 9G order book, the default dark that you'll see the first time that you load up 9G. So we're going to open up the settings panel, and I'm just going to show you inside of the Forms Designer node. At the moment, we just have one spec inside of here, the 9G order book, and that is the spec that's currently in operation. Yeah. So what we want to do is we're going to go to the 9G site. We're going to basically we're wanting to load a pre-built spec. You can build your own one entirely from scratch. It's up to you. But for this particular demo, I'm just going to show you how to apply pre-built specs. So what you do is you come to the 9G site, log in, click on the resources tab, and at the moment we've got these options available. This is just the default order book. That was a test that I did, and slowly this will fill out over time. Um, you know, Hopefully people will contribute designs to it, and you can rate designs. It also works with the number of downloads. So this resource will be sort of self-moderating, and hopefully over time, the highest quality designs and specs will actually filter up to the top. Um, so we're going to download a couple of light specs just so I can show you something different. So this spec here, Grey Tree, it's got a bit of a description about what's different between this spec and the default dark. There's an area here you can click on to discuss. It will take you to a thread that's auto-created when you load up a resource, and you can discuss the resource there. So what we want to do is we're going to download that, and then we're going to go back and download Sylvester Light. This one I'm not going to click download. I've already got the latest version of this in my downloads folder and slightly upgraded. The latest one looks fantastic, so I'm going to show that one as opposed to the one that's currently on the resource manager. So there we've got those two files downloaded. So now to bring them into 9G, it's simply a case of finding the files wherever you downloaded them. I downloaded them to my downloads folder. You want to copy them, and then you want to go to your NinjaTrader folder in your documents, and you want to go to the bin folder, custom folder, and inside of there you're going to have a 9G. So inside of your 9G folder, you've got the specs directory. When you go in there, you'll see there's a 9G order book. That's just the default specification that's currently in use. So we're going to paste those two new specs, 9G Dome and Grey Tree. This is the Sylvester Light, the new one. What happens now is that once we've pasted that in there, when we open up the 9G settings panel, it automatically detects them, it loads them in, it does everything that it needs to do to make the specs compliant with the current version you're running. And then it understands the full structure. So those now exist in here. If you want, and you know what you want to do, you can go in and you can actually modify details or whatnot. But for this demo, all we're going to do is we're going to apply it to another dome or form. So I'm going to open up a second one, and what we're going to do is we click on the workspace node, and we drop down the 9G workspace, which is the currently active workspace that I have these two domes sitting in. And you see them here. If I right click on it, it will actually highlight the outer boundary so we can tell which is which. So we want to change that one, and we're going to set that now to Grey Tree. So there we go. I've applied that spec, and essentially now this entire spec or form functions as a Grey Tree style dome. So everything on the dome is in relation to the instructions in that spec. The interaction is now different. if the interaction is defined differently in the spec, and that's it. That's how you apply it. So a couple of small things when you import, or not when you, I shouldn't say import because it's not really like importing. You just copy it there and it's available. But when you use it for the first time, what you need to do is the images on the buttons, they're actually separate, and you'll need to hook them back up again. So for instance, you see these two buttons. This is usually the add button. That's the settings button. So you want to go into Grade Tree, and you want to just point it to the correct bitmaps. A fast way of going to settings for a particular object is you hold down Shift and you just click it. So that takes me to the button inside of Grade Tree. And what I'm going to do is just double click this to sorry, I've got a mouse that doesn't double click, so I just switched it. So double click this and it brings up our directory browser. And you want to just go into, I'm just going to go back to the 9G directory, and we're going to go to bitmaps, and there I'm going to add the add icon. Then I'm going to shift click the other settings button, and I'm going to double click image path, and I'm going to choose the settings icon, and that's it applied. So you need to do that. And the other thing that you need to do on a spec is that session maps aren't carried through. So if there's a custom session map on the spec, then you'll need to define that session map and just attach it to the column. I'm not going to cover session maps on this one because otherwise it's going to get too long. So yeah, that's the spec applied. I'm going to open up a second or a third dome, and I'll just apply that other new Sylvester light to it. So there's now a different version. And this is a bit short. I think it's because of my screen resolution. It's different, and I haven't extended it yet to add the rows to fill out the full height. So yeah, that's another spec there. And you see again, it's missing the bitmap. So you just want to add those bitmaps in. So I can shift click that. It will take me to that button in there, and we can add. You can put whatever bitmaps on that you want, really. I'm just adding the ones that I've got in my directory because I haven't downloaded the ones that are available on the resource manager with the spec. So again, that's just adding those images. Couple of more things about specs. You'll notice when you're inside of the settings screen and you're in a workspace, if you click Add on here, it will default. At the moment, it's defaulting to 9G dark. Now, if you want to use a particular spec as your system default, you're going to want to go to Settings. You go to Global, and you'll change the default spec here. And let's say, for instance, we change that now to Grade Tree. What that means is now the system will automatically use that as the default. So if I click Add, you see there. So that's if you want to banish the dark spec for good and just use a particular spec that you're going to use for your trading. The final thing that I wanted to mention was that you can change your you can also change the system style over here. So if you're using a light dome, like in this case, you may not necessarily want to see the dark setting screen. Obviously, there's going to be a clash. So if you want to change that to the light one, you go to Settings, go to Global, and you've got this option here, Application Style, and there's two at the moment. There's the dark one and the light two. These don't operate on specs. It's merely skins that are applied to the default sort of system UI, and then you can change that to light two, and that gives you this sort of light spec, and that's a bit more cohesive with a light dome. So yeah, that's a sort of a basic rundown on specs and changing specifications using pre-built ones. If you want to find out more about customizing a spec, and then have a look at some of the other videos surrounding specifications. Thanks for watching.